you can't do that. And I would say, well, why? Why can't I? Are you sure? Let's have a go. See what happens. The problem, the root cause of the pain is never where the pain is. And I wanted the teacher to stop talking so that I could just take in this monumental piece of information that my shoulder joint was in my shoulder blade. And he says he was unfettered by higher learning. And I loved that. You know, if you're here, then you're still looking for the answer. So intuitively, you knew, well, that wasn't the answer for you. You're literally running against the tension that you've just generated within your own system.
Welcome to the Visionary Podcast, where we discuss science, medicine, physical health, and mental well-being. Helen Hall. Before we dive into the technical brilliance, I have to ask, you've been called everything from movement detective to the queen of efficiency. Yeah, I love that, the queen of efficiency. If you had to introduce yourself to someone at a dinner party, someone who hasn't heard of you before, how would you describe what you do?
So nobody's heard of me. I am just Helen Hall. And what I do is not a thing, it's a way of thinking. So I simply find what might be in the way of whatever they want to achieve. And that could be freedom from pain, that could be faster running times, that could be climbing up Mount Kilimanjaro, whatever it might be. I set about trying to find, through thinking better, what might be stopping them from achieving their goals. And at the very root of it all is just the desire to help. So I have this sort of almost innate need to help. Like just as we were discussing earlier, that you said something about yourself, and I just thought, oh, well, I might have an idea about that, because it's almost like a compulsion. I need to help.
Yeah, I appreciate that. The reason I'm tearing now, because yes, Helen suggested that she might be able to help me with my sleep problems. That's why I look a little bit funny. But so you're a problem solver then?
Yes, that's a nice way of putting it. Yes, I didn't think of it like that, but that's exactly, I'm not an ist in any way, because I use whatever tool might be needed. I explore problems. I start from the start point of movement, and then it goes from there to wherever it needs to go. Yeah, so problem solver, absolutely. In fact, interestingly, one of the online courses I've produced is called the Troubleshooting Checklist. So yes, that would definitely come under the banner of problem solving.
Yeah, that's what a detective does, right? You also have 40 years of experience as a movement therapist and a running coach. I'm looking at some of your biography now. It reveals a remarkable path. You were in the Royal Air Force as an air traffic control officer, where you won the Sash of Honor, right?
I did.
You were a fitness instructor, massage therapist, lymphatic therapist, cycle coach, ultra marathoner, with such a diverse background across fitness, therapy, and endurance sports. Which part of this lengthy journey that shaped how you view movement today?
Well, it all started when I was 6. I remember when I was 6 and I had this red bucket with a yellow handle, and I would make rose petal poultices, and they stank to high heaven. But if anybody had any kind of hurt, I would put my rose petal poultice on their hurt to make them better. I was always the doctor and the nurse, and I was never the patient. Still, hopefully, touch wood, never the patient. So there was this desire to help from as long as I can remember, and then a desire to move. So when I was in junior school, I wanted to run the mile, but we weren't allowed because we were too young. I mean, how mad is that? So I walked the mile with some silly fast walk as fast as I could go, got the record, and then when we moved from Gloucester to a rural village in Warwickshire, And then I was allowed to run down the back lane on my own. I was 13. And then the movement exploration started then. No formal education at all on anything to do with helping or movement or looking after people. I just did it. And I would run and play and think, well, that's not as comfortable. That's better. What's easiest? I was forever finding easiest. So I've been called Queen of Efficiency. I was the self-proclaimed Queen of Efficiency. Everything I did need to be as efficient as possible. I don't want to expend any extra energy or time doing something that could be easier or quicker. Some might say I'm innately lazy, but I've never stopped learning. And I've never stopped exploring, well, how far could I go? So somebody said, oh, you couldn't do that. Okay, well, I'm Yorkshire, so that was red rag to a bull. So I thought I'll give it a go, and I did do it. And then people would say, oh, you can't go that far in, for instance, barefoot shoes. So I tested the theory that you couldn't, and it turned out you could. So my journey evolved almost out of stubbornness, almost out of, you can't do that. And I would say, well, why? Why can't I? Are you sure? Let's have a go. See what happens. I was told you couldn't nose breathe a marathon and get a half decent time. And I thought, wow, doesn't make any sense. Our nostrils are amazing. They do amazing things to our physiology. You think, I think I could. And I was on for a halfway decent time, but I got bored. So it turns out I run out of interest, out of self-exploration, and for the beautiful views and the nature, not for industrial flyovers around Amsterdam.
Yes.
So the journey has been random and yet almost held together by the threads of curiosity and the drive to find better more efficiently.
Is that what you do when you see patients in your clinic, analyze their emotions?
Yes. Yes, I live it, dream it, think about it all the time. But I'm not looking at the movement patterns critically. I'm not, oh dear, look at that. It's, oh, now then, I wonder how that movement fits in with the perhaps pain pattern they're presenting with. So a lot of my work is solving chronic pain that doesn't seem to be responding to all standard traditional protocols. And so what I do is I look at how the pain area fits within the whole moving person. And because what I've learned in all these years I've been doing it, so many, just because somebody moves like that doesn't mean to say there's going to be any pain. Somebody could move like that and have pain on the other side to the person who is presenting. So say they've presented with pain in their right hip. Somebody could be making exactly the same shape as them, but the pain would be in their left hip or their foot on either side. There's no way of predicting where the pain is going to be, and indeed, even if there is going to be any pain. And that fascinates me.
Of course, it is fascinating to me now. So how do you tackle this? Do you trace the patterns that cause the pain kind of thing?
When you figure out, so the first thing to do is, if there is pain, figure out what kind of pain this must be. Because say I have tilted my shoulder up on the right. So say I'm presenting, standing still and moving, always with my right shoulder up. And the pain is in the right hip. Then I can think, oh, okay, so when the shoulder is elevated, because of how we're made, there's less shock absorption on that side. And there's an easy way to demonstrate this, but I'm sitting down. So I'll stay sitting down because of the mic, but it is, if you stand up and hoik your shoulder up and leave it there and just stand on one leg and just hang on to something, you'll As you bend your knee, you won't get very far. As soon as the shoulder comes down, as you bend your knee, you'll go much further. So we have this, this wonderful way of moving where the side that's sending the weight over to the other side, we want the shoulder to be elevated. That's our sort of stable, strong, slightly more rigid, propelling side. And the other side, we have the shoulder down on that side, ready to receive the weight. And that's our soft, almost waiting to receive giving side. That's our shock absorbing side. And we swap.
Yes.
So if we didn't have rotations as well, we'd all walk like Jack the Lad or like a bit of a penguin. But because we're three-dimensional and we have a bit of rotation as well, it smooths it all out so it's not so obvious. So the person who's presenting with the right hip pain, who has, for instance, a right shoulder elevated, I'll be thinking, oh, okay, so that's more of a pulling pain, a rigid type. We probably need to soften that and close it down. But say the pain was on the left, I'd be thinking, oh, okay, that's more of a compressive pain. We need to open it up. So
there's art there more than science.
Well,
thinking of that chain reaction and how our bodies crave and need harmony. So the fact that the shoulder is way higher than the other one would ripple effects in another place.
Yes. Pain is so complex, it doesn't mean to say there is going to be any pain. So we can't say, oh, it's because it might be, but it's so multifactorial, we have to hold multiple ambiguous hypotheses to figure out the why in order to go in at the right level and not just go in at the hip. In my experience, when people come to see me, it's predictable that everybody's been looking at the hip. And for many people, in the first instance, if you look at where the pain is and maybe you do some strength work, maybe you do some stretching, it solves the problem. So great, wonderful. If that hasn't worked, it being weak or it being too short would seem to be not the problem.
Yeah.
Because otherwise it would have solved like it did for the other people. So it's then a question of, okay, well, how does it fit within the moving whole? Is there something within the moving whole body that is withholding that area from healing? Is it forever overburdened with the weight of you? Or is it forever being pulled by the weight of you not being in the right place at the right time? And to add insult to injury, stopping or limiting the amount of shock absorption as you switch from one leg to the other.
Hi, I'm Hella, your host today. If you're enjoying what you see, please hit that lovely subscribe button. It would mean a lot to me and my team. Or maybe it's more now. We're still learning, we're still finding our feet, but with your support, we can build this channel. Let's take this journey together, one step at a time. Thank you so much for being part of it. Does that mean that the area of the symptoms is not always the area that caused the pain?
Well, I deal with chronic pain. Nobody comes to me in the acute stages.
Yes.
It's chronic.
Persistent.
So, yeah. So in my experience, it's never the problem, the root cause of the pain is never where the pain is.
Wow.
The pain is the outcome of something else happening within the system.
Yeah, it's like a chain reaction kind of thing.
Yes.
So if I present to you with a knee pain, let's say, how would you determine, of course, then we're seeking a generalized, simplified answer. How would you determine whether it's the problem is up the chain in the pelvic area or maybe in the foot?
Well, you can't know until you've checked everything.
Yes.
So you have to hold...
because it's all possible, you're trying to tell me. It can be anywhere.
It can be
and you need
anywhere
to be a detective.
Within the whole system. So you look, you watch all of the movements and you see where movement is happening and where movement isn't happening. The easiest place to start is, what does the frame look like when standing still? What does the frame look like when moving? Everything should change when moving. So anything that stays the same from static to motion is of great interest. So why is that shoulder staying up? Okay, it was standing. When standing still, it was elevated. Now the person is moving, it's still elevated. It's never coming down. Okay. Why? Is there any ancient injury history, a broken arm, a broken wrist, or a surgery that had the arm in a position with an elevated shoulder, protective, guarding, protecting against pain, all of those things? Is it residual from that and the body forgot to let go? Which is entirely possible. And in my experience, it didn't let go because of something else. So you keep going back, you keep going further and further back until you get to the beginning. And invariably, not all the time, because there are no absolutes in movement, we don't know everything yet. So every single modality that exists out there has value and is incomplete. Everything, because we don't know everything yet. So nothing is complete, which is really exciting, because all we can do is learn more and connect more. So to go back to the beginning, then you might think, okay, maybe it's being held there by something that's invisible, not an old injury, not any trauma to the area that may have resulted in, say, a shoulder being elevated.
Tension,
absolutely. But why? You just keep going. You keep going back and back. Why? So for instance, I don't know why I picked a right shoulder, but we'll go along with the flow of the right shoulder. So then I might notice that the person has got this kind of habit and they're touching their mouth or the space between their nostril and their lips, or they've got a little goatee beard and they're fiddling with it all the time. And I'm thinking, this is very curious. Yeah. They have this hand-to-mouth habit. And then I'll bring in a little conversation about maybe back to early days. And I'll say, and they might have given me a clue that they had to have a few teeth extracted because there wasn't quite enough room for all of their teeth. And you think, well, why wouldn't there have been quite enough room for all of their teeth? That's a bit odd. We're meant to have enough room for all of our teeth. So why wouldn't there be any room for their teeth, or enough room for all of their teeth? And then I say, so was there perhaps a thumb sucking habit? And their eyes might pop out of their head. How did you know? And of course, the hand is still there. I mean, they're literally, the thumb isn't going in anymore because they're all grown up, but the hand is still there fiddling. And so this is, for me, a mouth-soothing element of movement development. So it started off thumb sucking and maybe with a blankie, and then they grew up and they may have bitten their nails or chewed. I had one lady recently, she said she destroyed Bic pens. And so she knew, she said, as soon as I said mouth soothing need, I didn't even have to ask if she'd done anything. She just spontaneously said, I destroyed Bic pens.
I had that too. Yeah, sucking this thumb for years and years. Yes. Even when I was 9 years old, I kept the habit for longer than I'd like to admit.
Yes. And so this is highly relevant.
Is it?
So there's this mouth soothing need that happens, and maybe you grow up and you get terribly controlled. You don't bite your nails, you don't chew pens anymore, you don't suck sweeties all day long, you don't chew gum endlessly. But maybe you chew the inside of your mouth, or maybe you chew your tongue, or maybe you do nothing in the day, but at night you clench your jaw and or grind your teeth. And maybe the dentist has said to you that you've got to wear a mouth splint to protect your teeth. And then I'll think, I wonder if the jaw is tighter on the side that stays elevated. And it's a rule of thumb because it can be the opposite.
Yes.
For a variety of slightly more complex reasons. And when we're talking hypothetically, you can end up down a rabbit hole. So we'll keep it really simple. So I will test for the hand-to-mouth connections. And let's say, sure enough, the test is tighter on the right than the left. So there's this tension between the shoulder blade and the throat, which makes the shoulder stay elevated. Because when I learned about the shoulder blade, there were two moments in anatomy class, and I know you like anatomy. So the first one was I had a rather nebulous concept of where the shoulder joint was. So we're going back, I don't know how many decades now, 4 more. And it was, well, where's a shoulder joint? Yes, well, it's sort of here on the side of my body. I had no idea the shoulder joint was in the shoulder blade. As far as I was concerned, the shoulder blade was at the back and my shoulder was on my side. So that was a moment in class, and I remember it so well. And I wanted the teacher to stop talking so that I could just take in this monumental piece of information that my shoulder joint was in my shoulder blade. Now, many people might know this already. In my experience, I think only one client who's come into my clinic has ever known this. So I wasn't alone in this vagueness on a shoulder joint. We know where a hip joint is and a knee joint and an ankle joint, and the shoulder was much vaguer. And then the second time I was, okay, the world needs to stop. Just everybody calm down, because I've just learned that there are 17 muscles attached to the shoulder blade. And if you Google it, some sites say 16. And I do worry about AI.
That's many.
It's not always correct.
No.
So, and they all seem to be copying and pasting the same error. And then,
it's true, because they're grabbing information from the internet,
of course,
from Google.
And they were missing what I think could be, because what do I know? I am, I don't know how you pronounce it, but I think it's Itzhak Bentov. He was an engineer scientist. He is an engineer scientist, and he wrote Stalking the Wild Pendulum. It's an amazing book. There was an equation that Einstein was trying to solve, and nobody could solve this equation. He came along and thought, I'll give it a go and see what happens. And he solved it. But he never went to school. He was booted out of kindergarten, age 3. And he says he was unfettered by higher learning. And I loved that. There was no lead. Nobody was taking him by the hand and saying A to B to C to D, linearly learning this, then that, then that. And when I read that, I felt freed by my lack of formal, university qualifications. I was in the Air Force when I was 18 and 2 weeks. So my place at university, I said, no, thanks, I'll join the Air Force instead. And I won't study physics and meteorology after all. I'll just go and be an air traffic control officer. So off I went. And I've always, for a long time, I was, okay, well, I haven't got a degree. What do I know? But now I'm so happy I haven't, because my self-education has been free to go where I am most curious. I can't answer that question. Where can I go to find more information to answer that question? And so I've meandered my way through, bumped into things. There's always been a theme, but no preconceived path. It's just evolved quite organically.
You just mentioned something about joint mechanics, and I read that you simplified the complexities of joint mechanics, and there's a lovely analogy that you used, something like joints as doors. Some are closed and some are shut. Please share this concept with us. How do we explain this?
When joints open, so if we bend a knee,
yes,
we can have give into our knee. We can have softness. And if we extend the knee, so we lock the knee out, then we have rigidity. So as we move from one foot to another, we must have some joints that are providing the stability for us to propel off, and some joints that have the softness and the ability for us to land and not self-jar. So if all of our joints were open, we'd be like floppy jellyfish, Indian rubber man, just, unable to stand up straight. But if all of our joints were closed, then we would be like, I don't know, Tin Man in The Wizard of Oz, all rigid and stuck. And so I see movement as a dance, an exchange of doors, some doors opening, some doors closing. And the exploration of movement is to see, well, what doors stay closed? What doors stay open? And the question is it born of joint restrictions, or is it born of movement patterning deep inside the brain, which is holding those joints open or closed? So just because a joint stays open or closed doesn't mean to say it's the joint's fault. It might be the wiring in the brain's fault. It's doing it for our best. It's serving our best interests.
Protecting something.
It is, because that shoulder blade is connected to the throat. Okay. There's 2 guy ropes going from the hyoid bone, which wraps in front of your food pipe and your air pipe, and attaches to the top inside edge of your shoulder blade. So as we move, and that makes sense that the hyoid bone, very cool bone, it's the only bone in the human body not attached to another bone. It's the bone that gets fractured when you're strangled.
Oh.
Yeah. So we can, which is awful, and we can see how important it is. So this is a seriously important bone, and there's relevance to this with the right shoulder. So this bone here, it needs to be able to move around because we need to be able to breathe and swallow no matter where our head is. So it moves around and it's attached to the shoulder blade at the back. So and the bone is where the tongue attaches to. So the tongue is a very cool muscle because it apparently never gets tired. If my babbling is anything to go by. So the tongue is attached to the hyoid bone. And the tongue is the only muscle in the human body that's only attached to a bone at one end.
Really?
So yeah. So this is a very cool area, and it's connected to the shoulder blade at the back. Yeah. So when the hand to mouth connection on the right side is wired tight, it pulls the jaw up on that side, which pulls the hyoid up, which pulls on the shoulder blade. And the shoulder can't go down because this area, the hyoid bone area, will win because this is survival. So it's all about the hierarchy, the totem pole of sustainable life. And if this has any tension on it for some reason, then whatever else it's attached to will have a restriction of some description. So often a knee problem, a hip problem, an ankle problem isn't the knee, hip, or the ankle. It is a shoulder that cannot drop down. It cannot relax because the hyoid is being pulled up on that side, and so the shoulder will go with it.
That's quite the investigation. That's why you deal with chronic pain. I could see now how surgeons, doctors, and physios would, in a way, fail, let's say, to discover the root cause of pain, but you can. You have your own techniques, your clues, you use high-tech technology in detecting pain, but you also use intuition and art and like all the senses that you have in deciphering the real problem. Now, I'm still interested in the joints mechanics and the analogy of closing doors and opening doors. So even when we're running, there are some joints that are open and some are closed.
Yeah, always. Otherwise you can't move. So the propelling leg has a knee joint, for instance, if you've got knee extension of closed joints. The foot should have closed joints because it becomes a propelling rigid lever. But when you land on it, so when you're running, my tech tells me you've got about 0.25 to maybe 0.3 of a second time in contact with the ground. And you've got to transform from a flexible adapter, soft, joints open, into a rigid lever to propel off efficiently.
Yeah. Do we need to learn how to run? Isn't it intuitive when we used to run from predators as cavemen?
Yeah, absolutely. It's innate. It's an innate movement pattern. It's organized for us, available to us. I always talk about when we learn how to walk, it's to great applause. And then there's the parents don't even notice when the toddler or the infant is suddenly running. They've gone from walking and toppling to running without you even realizing it. It just happens spontaneously as all of our movement development happens. It's not really spontaneous. It's along a DNA-driven timeline of movement emergence. And running, which is just getting airborne, it's still putting one foot in front of the other. You just happen to be airborne and then land on one foot. And it seems to be innate in us as a bipedal mammal. Okay. So yes, we don't have to learn how to run. We just do it.
If it's so ingrained in us, why do some of us or most of us get it wrong? Like I've discovered through researching this episode, and I'm a very keen runner. I've been running for ages. And like, I dare say I enjoy it at the very end, but I've discovered that I've been making so many mistakes. Where is the flow here?
So I don't think there is a wrong or a right way to run. That doesn't really make any sense. That would seem like there's a wrong or a right way to walk. And it is when we see fluid, flowing, organized movement, and then we see it against awkward, clunky, laborious movement, there's not a right or a wrong. There's a more efficient and a less efficient. So you look at somebody who is finding it very difficult and wondering, well, why? Why is this innate movement difficult for them? What is missing? What is stuck? Either joints, too open, too closed, or what innate movement patterning within the depths of the brain. It's almost like a filing cabinet. Yeah. You go deep, deep, deep into the basal ganglia, and then all of these movement patterns apparently get filed away there to be used whenever we want. So why is their movement awkward?
Yeah, give me examples now of the poor running habits that we hold on to and prevent us from being super efficient.
Well, I think we are the biggest problems.
But yeah, we cause it all.
We get in our way. My friend Chris Ruthven used to say, we get in our way all the time. We think we ought to be doing stuff. We think it should look like this, therefore we must do it like that.
We were told that this is a way to do it at some point in life, and no one else contradicted this idea. So I thought, okay, it's in my head, I should be doing this. And that's how we acquired knowledge.
Yes. And to a certain extent, we have evolved with mimicry. So we copy idols, we copy what everybody else is doing. So part of it is that is an innate element of our behavior. And we get told stuff and we believe it. And I hear in clinic, but they sounded so confident.
Yeah, yeah. Think, most of them do.
Yes. So, but did you feel it better? And if you're here, then you're still looking for the answer. So intuitively, you knew, well, that wasn't the answer for you. So the key here is there's that beautiful quote that Jim Quick said of his client Jim Quick, the brain guy, the amazing brain guy. And one of his clients said to him, "We are drowning in information and starving for wisdom." So there's all this deluge of information out there about what running should be and how to do it. And you will either question it, like me, I question everything, not to be obnoxious, but just to, well, are you sure?
Out of curiosity.
Yeah. So, and always I think if you scratch the surface and it doesn't quite make sense, then we need to ask more questions and learn more.
Yeah, till we're confident enough and efficient enough to do something.
Yeah. So one of the this is how you run out there, is you've got to pump your elbows.
No?
Yeah. No.
Yeah. It
So
doesn't help.
For the person who might have been hands very high and it was all about the twist and their body kind of wiggles along, then that cue may well have organized their movements a little bit better and helped them. But if your upper body movement is fine, if you start pumping your elbows with rigidity, you actually are limiting your innate movement pattern, and you're making it harder.
The choice here is relevant to the personality itself, to the pertinent to how I move as a Hala, whether I will need to swing my arms or not.
Yes, the
it's question like personalizing the run.
Yes. Okay. So the only person who's important here is you. So what does your body need? Does it need to do anything? Maybe your arms are completely fine as they are. Leave them alone. Nothing wrong with your arms. I haven't seen you run, but maybe there's nothing wrong with your arms, but you heard that you're meant to pump your elbows. And we see on the television stiff hands.
Yes.
Well, as soon as there's stiffness, can you feel the tension? Straight away. You have rigid hands, and now the shoulders are rigid. Now the muscles into the neck are rigid. Then I've got rigidity around my jaw, and then everything is
difficult.
Even my feet have become rigid.
Yeah. And this takes away an energy that could be used to achieve efficiency.
You're literally running against the tension that you've just generated within your own system, which to me seems illogical, inefficient, hard work, and it probably isn't that comfortable.
With no gain at all.
No.